Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. As we get everyone in the waiting room to get in, welcome, everyone. I see you all coming in. Elizabeth, Emily, hello, hello, Ruben. Hello, everyone. All right, I'm just gonna make sure we get a little bit of our things showing real quick, and then we can get started. Everyone can use the chat. The chat is open for everyone to say hello and interact with our speaker today. Before we get started, I do want to go over some housekeeping notes with you all. We are recording the session for those who could not attend today, as well as for yourselves to refer to at a later date. We will also have this recording sent to you via email within the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll also have the recording up on Scholar Central under the resource tab for the ScholarCast folder. So that's you'll have multiple areas to find those this recording. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please utilize the Q&A box. This Q&A box is a unique little box where you can ask your questions. And if you see a question that's asked and you agree with that question, you were going to ask the same question, you can actually vote yes or thumbs up to that individual's question, and they will be able to be bumped up to the top. Or if you have a follow-up to that question, you can comment on that question and with an additional question. Throughout the presentation, our speaker will be having some questions that she's going to be asking you all to interact with, and you can utilize the chat through that. So if you want to go ahead and try out the chat and just say hello, what school you're from, we'll love to know that in the chat. So please feel free to utilize the chat to say hi. I would love to see all those coming through. Let's see. There we go. Hello, hello. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it. I'm happy to know that this chat's working. So thank you for that. Well, without further ado, welcome everyone. My name is Courtney Pomeran. I am the Member Engagement Specialist with NSCS. We're so happy to have you all here today for this month's NSCS ScholarCast. Today, we are privileged to introduce an esteemed speaker and expert in navigating change and overcoming obstacles and achieving better outcomes. With a deep understanding that our organizations and individuals are unique, Helene recognizes that one-size-fits-all solutions fall short. She understands that each situation requires a tailored approach, and it is through her extensive experience in customized methods, she empowers her clients to forge international and purposeful paths toward their desired goals. Helene's expertise lies in a wide variety, helping executives and their teams establish a common language that removes obstacles and resolves conflicts, ultimately facilitating the attainment of desired results. She firmly believes that the collective power of individuals working together towards a shared vision and mission, understanding that success stems from fostering an environment where everyone can thrive. By unleashing the full potential of individuals, Helene transform organizations, making them more successful and unlocking their cultural-driven competitive advantage. With a master's degree in organizational psychology from Columbia University and an NSCS parent herself, multiple coaching certificates, Helene brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her speaking engagements. She has a unique ability as a certified DISC facilitator and consultant, sets her apart to help other individuals understand their behavioral styles and leverage them for enhanced effectiveness. She empowers her audience to tap into their strengths and use them to their advantage. Helene's felicitation style is engaging, personalized, and flexible, allowing her to establish a strong repertoire with her audience. This repertoire fosters a conducive learning environment that promotes confidence building and a practical application to new skills. As Helene takes the stage, we can expect an enlightening experience that is equipped us with tools and mindset to overcome challenges and thrive in times of change. Her insight and guidance will enable us to navigate the complexities of our ever-evolving world with confidence and resilience. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Helene Scott, whose expertise and speaking powers will undoubtedly inspire and guide us toward achieving our goals and unlocking our full potential. Thank you, Helene, for joining us. We're so excited to jump into this presentation with you. And without further ado, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's really exciting for me to be here with all of you. I'm really excited to talk about our session today. This is a topic that I feel really, really strongly about, and I hope you will as well. We're going to talk about how you can enhance your leadership abilities by understanding emotional intelligence. So let's start looking at it this way. In today's really fast-paced, ever-changing landscape, you really have to learn how to set yourself apart. Set yourself apart from an applicant pool, which could be anyone you're competing with. It's whether you're interviewing, it's whether you're working on a project, it's whether you're working within a company. You want to set yourself apart to show that you have the talent beyond just the skill set to do the job. When you have a skill set to do a job, you could think of it as kind of like transactional, but you want to be able to prove that you have the ability to help organizations or your group that you're working with, your project team, to achieve better outcomes. That's what we're going to look at today. Before we start, I'd like to share a brief story with you. So as Courtney said, I am a mom of an NSCS member. My son was a member of NSCS, and when he graduated college, he was in a really tight job market. So before I started doing my own business, just to give you a little history, I did HR for over 35 years. So my son is looking for a job, but never once asked me to look at his resume. So I was like, he's sending out resumes. He's not hearing from anyone. It's like the resume black hole. And he was getting really frustrated. So I said to him, will you let me look at your resume now? And he did. And he had NSCS on his resume, but he didn't provide a whole lot of detail or discuss his leadership experience. So we talked about it, and I said to him, talk about your activities at NSCS. You were a section editor for your school paper, like you had writers reporting to you. How do you take that information and craft your story about why you're a better candidate than other people? So he finally got an interview or several interviews. A company made him an offer. And when they made him the offer, the hiring manager said to him that they offered him the job, even though he didn't have the experience that they were looking for, because he was able to articulate his understanding of leadership and discuss how he grew his leadership skills while in college. We're going to talk about that again. So think about that as we're going through this. So let's look at how you can utilize your understanding of emotional intelligence to grow in your leadership power. And if that's too coachy, sorry, I'm a coach. All right, let's get to this. All right, so let's talk about agility. When we think about agility, really, what is it? And it's more than a buzzword. It actually is a requirement. And let's look at it from the perspective of before 2020, okay? Organizations had already started, and they were in the process of going through different kinds of transformation to support organizational agility, flexibility, and change. And agility is really having the ability to quickly identify that change is needed. And you need to make the change now rather than going down the same path. So you can think of it this way. You're in a car, you're heading to the end of a cliff. You don't want to drop down. So before you even get there, you have to be willing to change the path and make change. This is a really important skill set for everyone, particularly leaders. And agility is a really big part of emotional intelligence. So why are we so conscious of the need for agility? Well, let's consider what happened before 2020. The marketplace was then, and it continues to be, constantly reshaped by powerful macro forces, such as sweeping globalization, rapidly advancing technology, AI, an unprecedented diverse workforce, and relentless competition. Then in 2020, we had the pandemic and everything changed, right? We had a lot less control, particularly over the speed of change that we all experienced. So not embracing that change, people who fought the change then and now were fighting a losing battle. You cannot stay on the same course when the course is not serving you. If you are staying on the same course and you're not getting outcomes you want, you need to change the course. You need to embrace that. You need to be agile. All righty. Let's see if I get there. I'm technically probably not very agile. So Wiley is a company that works with behavioral assessment tools that I personally work with. And they went out and they did a survey with over 320,000 global respondents. And they found through their survey that 97% of leaders state that developing emotional intelligence is crucial to building an agile workforce. So I'm going to ask you, and please pop in with your answers, what you think. Why do you think emotional intelligence is considered so important in leadership? I don't expect you to know all of this because we're getting through this, but we're going to ask the question later on too. So let's see. Courtney, can you read out as people respond?
Sorry, yes, I can read that out to you. Let's see. Marie Ann just said it provides a necessary awareness to be able to, sorry, they're coming in really fast now. The ability to relate to people and lead them. Employees are able to understand how they feel and relate to others. Kristen says, helps you become aware of others and what they need to make those changes. Peter suggests it allows you to maintain connections with those who you work with. Because it's important to understand your employees emotionally so that you may better support their happiness.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch coming in.
All right, how about two more?
Let's do this one says emotional intelligence influences and pushes others forward, self-awareness and control with the ability to connect to those that you are leading.
All right, I'm excited. All right, hopefully everyone's ready. Let's go. So what exactly is emotional intelligence? Okay, think of it like a three-pronged stool. You have self-awareness. People always say, well, I'm self-aware. And my response is always, tell me more. Because when we talk about self-awareness, it's really understanding how you respond to things. It's understanding what triggers you. Triggers could be good or bad. They're not all negative, but do you understand when you're triggered? Like what happens when you are triggered? And the big thing is, do you understand why you're triggered? So think of it this way. I'll say me. I get, when someone questions me and tells me I'm wrong, or ask me things because they don't believe that I know what I'm talking about or that I'm correct, and none of this is true because that never happens to me, but I get triggered by becoming very defensive. Why do I become defensive? Thinking through that and working through the process of understanding that, I then could identify, here's the situation. I know I'm going to be triggered like this. I understand why I'm triggered, and then I could self-regulate. I could be less defensive or not defensive at all. And instead I could take a breath. I could say, tell me more. I can hear what other people are saying without the emotions of thinking that they doubt me, or they don't think I know what I'm talking about, or maybe it's I doubt myself. Maybe I lack confidence in this area. And so when they're asking questions, I think, oh my God, they know I don't know what I'm talking about. There's many, many different reasons that we're triggered. But when you are aware of the situation, how you're triggered, why you're triggered, then you could do what's called self-regulation and make the change. one of the reasons for that is, think about this. When I'm being defensive, or if someone's being defensive, others start to shut down. They're less likely to share things with you. If you say something and they want to get involved in the conversation, but maybe they have a different perspective on it, they're going to be afraid to share that with you, because they're going to know that you're going to get so defensive. So they just don't even engage, and you lose all this really productive conversation. So when you have the self-awareness and you can regulate how you respond to things, you then can really understand how others are responding around you, and you could have a more productive conversation. And that really is emotional intelligence. Okay. So what can emotional intelligence lead to? Well, we're going to go back to the three-legged stool, but it leads to really strong decision-making. So think about this. When you have the self-awareness, you understand your triggers, you can self-regulate, you understand others and how they respond to you. You then have a more ways that you can control impulses. Now, impulses could be good or bad, but before you just do a knee-jerk reaction to something, you really want to understand the why. I want to have information. I want to reality test or test assumptions. So rather than letting fear or excitement get in the way of your decision, which is part of impulse control, you're going to look at the why and the what ifs and not be afraid of the outcome. The outcome might be different than what you had anticipated, but you're not afraid of that. And when you do that, you're able to control your impulses, you reality test, you go through all these things, you're looking at fact, not emotion. Oh my gosh, you start solving problems in different ways. You are looking at things from fact, not emotion. And another way of looking at these decision-making abilities is through the lens of agility. So that same organization that did the survey, what they found was 90% of people felt that it was important for them to be more agile than it was 5 years ago. And 95% of leaders said agility is more important for the organization's success than it was 5 years ago. And agility is, you're stronger in agility when you have the emotional intelligence to look at things from a different manner. And that's why agility is critical for emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, I want to take this and look at it, shift gears for a minute, let's say, and look at agility from the workplace, okay? This might not be new to you, and that's okay, but bear with me. Many organizations are really striving to be more nimble or agile by looking at their structure, looking at systems, looking at processes, and saying, what do we need to do to be more agile? So things that have happened, I'd say in the last decade, organizational structures are flatter than they've been before. So you don't have the hierarchy. We have agile project management systems. We also have matrix groups. So you might have a team. So let's say, I'll just give you an example. Let's say you're a writer and you have a team of writers, that's your team, but you're also working with the business development people, and you're working with project management people, and you're working with this group and that group in order to help them write. You're in a matrix environment. So you're working with many different people, and on each team, you might have a different leader. Organizations before the pandemic were really encouraging video collaboration and looking at social networking tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams. I mean, if you think about where it was then and the number of companies that used it, and then in the pandemic, how many companies really depended on it in order to be able to keep moving forward. So those were things that were happening. And all of that's a really great start, right? It helps us to be really agile as an organization. But the system change is wonderful, but it's not enough. So in order to have change, we absolutely have to have agile workers. So that means people who could adapt to the environment around them, who could be collaborative with others as needed. When people can't withstand rapid change, they don't embrace change, they get left behind because they continue, like the example I gave before about the cliff. Instead of going sideways and not going over the cliff, they might go over the cliff because they're so afraid to risk change. So what I'd like to do is look at the psychology behind the agile worker or the emotionally intelligent worker, okay? So we're going to look at it from this perspective. We have three things that we're going to focus on. The context is we have the disruption, we have the shifting organization, and the evolving talent. Let's dig in. So with disruption, what does it require? Well, it requires you to be able to change direction quickly. So whether that disruption is the pandemic, whether it's storms, and I'm pointing out because I'm in Central Florida and we're having storms. So whether it's storms, whether it's a war in Ukraine that's affecting us, whether it's a potential hurricane, you have to be able to change direction quickly. When you're changing direction, it's imperative that you communicate that effectively. If you're in a group and you're changing direction and you're going in the other direction, but you don't explain to everyone, hey, there's a cliff, we're going this way, people are going to go over the cliff because they're not going to understand. So you have to be comfortable changing direction quickly, figuring out how to communicate effectively, which is part of emotional intelligence, right? It's being aware of others, problem solving, being able to communicate with others. When you don't do this effectively and you don't communicate effectively, you're going to have people who are going to resist. And they're going to do the yeah, buts, and they're not going to want to go with you. So it's being able to push back on that resistance. And when I say push back on the resistance, I mean do it in a way that you get people in alignment with you. So not in an aggressive way, but helping people to see your vision of why you're making the change. And then you don't have to worry about the resistance. Or if they are resisting, you bring up facts, not emotion, and you get them on board with you. So for disruption, you have to be able to be receptive to the people around you and what they're saying, think through it, be able to problem solve and resolve the problem using good decision-making tools. That's part of emotional intelligence. And then not be afraid of risk. And when you're willing to embrace change and you go through all the steps of emotional intelligence and looking at all the reasons why, you might not know what the outcome's going to be, but risk-taking becomes less scary to you because you know staying in the same direction you've been in is not an option. All right, let's look at the next part of the psychology behind the agile worker. And we are going to look at the shifting organization. So think of it this way. And what we talked about, organizations are quite different in their understanding of how to respond and problem solving. We've had so many changes now. It used to be that it was very hierarchical and you had one person who told you what to do, when to do, how to do it. Companies are different now. There's actually, when you have a matrix environment or you have project teams, there's more, you could think of it as a shared power. So yeah, the CEO pretty much sets the direction, but other people get to weigh in and say something. So if you're working in an organization and you see something and you have the vision of what can help it, there's a shared power in being able to say, hey, I was thinking about this, and I think we should consider this. And that takes a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to do it because it's your how. In a shifting organization, you could be on multiple teams, like I said. So when you're on multiple teams, the boundaries become kind of ambiguous. So you have a project leader here, you have a project leader here, you have a project leader here. What's your role and how can you have these conversations? This all requires high levels of emotional intelligence. You have to be comfortable with outreach to people. So when you have high levels of emotional intelligence, you have your own self-awareness. You are able to self-regulate because you understand what triggers you. You have an awareness of others and how they respond. Your outreach becomes easier. And you could outreach in a way that involves diplomacy. So you're aware of the person. So you're not changing your message, you're changing how you share your message. And then we have assertiveness, which doesn't mean that you're a bully. And it doesn't mean you say, we're doing it my way or no way. It's when do you go in and have your shared power? When do you go in and say, I've been thinking about this and I think A, B, C, or D? It's thinking about how do you reach out to someone, maybe someone who's at a different level than you are, or someone you've not spoken to before. How do you do that? It requires some self-confidence, and assertiveness requires self-confidence. So it's looking at that as a way to really elevate the organization. So agile workers take all of this into account and they utilize their emotional intelligence regularly. All right, now let's look at the evolving team. We have such a difference in organizations than we've ever had before. So we have the most diverse work groups or the working environments that we've ever had before. So we have multiple generations, multiple levels of education, nationality, ethnicity, class, if people still look at class. You have personalities. You have organizational structures, different levels of knowledge. Some people are knowledgeable about this, some are knowledgeable about that. It's being able, again, to use your emotional intelligence to say, I need to be able to hear what they're saying. I need to understand where they're coming from. And that's being aware of others. And you can't do that unless you have your own self-awareness. You recall, it's your own self-awareness, it's understanding your triggers, it's understanding why you're triggered, and it's self-regulating. And when you could do that and you could understand others and how they are responding, you could actually have empathy for them in ways you might not have had before. You might have had sympathy, not empathy. So you really can understand what they're feeling and why. You could look at it from an objective stance. So rather than the emotions around it, so when something happens and we're triggered and there's a lot of emotions around it, there's a lot of outside distraction and noise that keeps us from being able to find solutions. So when you could be objective and you could listen to other people and hear what they have to say, you could then work towards problem solving in ways that will get you to where you want to be. And in order to do that, it requires self-assurance. So you have to have confidence. You have to know who you are, understand how people respond to you. And if people don't respond in a way that you are comfortable with them responding, how do you shift that? How do you make change? What can you do differently? All of that requires the three-legged stool approach for emotional intelligence and decision-making. When you have all of this, you have the ability to have other outcomes. And this is what organizations are looking for. They're looking for people who can help them find their outcomes that they want, that aren't going to dig their heels in and go over the cliff, but are going to say, hey, we've been doing this and I see another way of doing it and I want to talk to you about it. And depending on who you're talking to, find the right way to have the conversation with them. I hope that makes sense to you. So there was another study that was done, and it was done by McKinsey and Company. And I will tell you, this was in 2019. So they did a survey and they were asking managers what was the most important thing to them. What did they think were the skills that were necessary for the future? And 24% of them said it was the demand for social and emotional skills, which means problem solving, decision making, being able to create strategy, being able to articulate strategy. It was having what used to be called the soft skills are now called social and emotional skills. So they said that that need for that was going to rise by 24% by the year 2030. I think since the pandemic, there's an awareness that those skill sets, the ability again to problem solve, to create strategy, understand strategy, communicate strategy, and make decisions is going to, the need for that, the demand for that is going to rise by 24% way before 2030. I think it's going to be sooner. McKinsey might disagree with me, but just keep in mind, all of those things are so important. So having the skill set, but then having these social and emotional skills are critical for you to be able to get to where you want. And when you have them, knowing how to articulate them is critical. So you can have the ability to problem solve, but if you don't know how to articulate that to people, how you do it, what you do, why you do it, and do it in a compelling manner, because you're aware of the people you're talking to, and you can alter the how of the communication, maybe not the communication. When you're able to share that story in ways that other people can understand and feel, they will hear you, you're in alignment, and you're sharing your vision as to why you, and they're going to be in alignment with you, and you're going to be able to move through within your career to do the things that you want to do, and quicker than you might have done otherwise. All right. So let's talk about the power of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence gives you the ability to understand yourself in different ways, right? And it helps you understand others. That's like the foundational piece. When you are able to do that, you can then value and appreciate differences. So there's so many different facets of diversity. And they include diverse ways of problem solving, diverse ways of looking through a situation and coming up with how you can get to the outcome. There's many different ways to do that. And when you can value and appreciate differences, you can build teams that get you to different outcomes that you never imagined. Emotional intelligence helps you foster productive interactions because you are self-aware, you self-regulate, because you're aware of how your responses affect other people. So again, you're sharing your vision and getting people in alignment with you. And you're making decisions based on fact, not emotion. Emotional decisions are typically not good. And when you do all that, you improve engagement, you improve collaboration, and you improve performance. So basically what you're doing is you are unlocking your competitive advantage. So now I want everyone who's already answered, think about what you just heard, and now answer this again. Why do you think emotional intelligence, is considered so important in leadership? And I'll give you a few minutes, and then Courtney will start reading it out. Okay, Courtney?
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Thank you.
You guys can utilize the chat box to answer her questions. Jane Cabtree says it is a comprehensive overview. Elizabeth says, know the people to lead the people. It helps you get more comfortable within yourself and stand out from the crowd to be able to make a change. Inspires others to help, or it helps you get along with others and build relationships. Chelsea says it allows you to understand your emotions and react based on truths instead of feelings.
Yeah.
To be agile. Jade says to understand your triggers as well as others to prevent blowups and emotional decisions and make decisions based on facts to improve your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Reach your full potential as well as others.
Mm-hmm.
And that looks like it's one more. We have opens the conversation to problem solve in a team building way.
Yeah. Okay, so now what can you do utilizing this important time and your membership with NSCS to build your emotional intelligence and your leadership abilities? It's like I said earlier, how I helped my son craft his message about where he grew leadership. What can you do? And I'm going to give you some time, and then please put it in the chat. What do you think right now you can do to utilize your membership to really elevate your emotional intelligence and your leadership abilities? So you are crafting your story for when you're either on an interview or sharing in a company you're already at why you are the best person for this new role. Take your time. It's an important question. I'm hoping people are writing.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh,
There they come. All right. Listen to comprehend instead of listening to reboot. Emily states, I think continuing to attend all of the virtual meetings that NSCS offers, as well as incorporate what I learned from them into my chapter, work, and life in general. Jade says, express that you have an emotional talent training. Marie Ainge says, get out of our comfort zone more often and improve our communication skills, i.e. by answering these questions.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, very good. Chelsea says, become more self-aware, think critically, reach out to others and for feedback on your triggers. And one more person asked, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So what can you do now within your membership with NSCS to help yourself elevate your emotional intelligence and your leadership skills so that you're crafting your story for when you are going on an interview or you want to show that you're the best person for this new role? How do you utilize all of this to build your story and give yourself the competitive advantage?
Jonathan says, I can work with others from my school who are in NSCS to talk about how to improve the community. I can also talk to them about how to be a better student and how to become more of a leader within the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Jean says, with everyone having a chance for input, it enables them to feel part of a team and encourage them to participate further.
Mm-hmm.
Become more self and social awareness, get with other members in the society and sorry, the screen's popping, and how to be a better person within the workplace. Rebecca states, self-reflect on these topic points to find my triggers and ways to further my awareness. Kayla says, use the resources available to be able to network with them, with more people.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any more?
Nope, looks like those are the ones that came through.
Okay. So I would say get involved. See if you can get on chapter leadership. Imagine saying, I was responsible for our chapter's social media. And because of the work I did, we grew membership by XYZ. Or I was talking to other people about my membership at NSCS, and they wanted to know how they could be part of it. And we grew our team and we made a difference at the school. These are just some ideas. But getting involved and really flexing those muscles. So think about emotional intelligence. One of the hardest things is going to be not the trigger, because we could kind of figure those out, but figure out the why of the trigger. That takes some deep thought. And when you do that and then realize, oh, I'm being triggered, I need to self-regulate right now, and figuring out what you do. Some people will, like, when I'm triggered, I realize I'm being triggered and I'll take a breath. I know people who always have like a hairband or a rubber band on their wrist and they snap it to remind themselves, figure out what you need to do and how you can ensure that that noise, and it's really the noise in our head, that noise you are controlling, you are self-regulating in order to do a better job of problem solving, going out there, talking about the things that you learned, the things that you've done. And really, you have to have a very concise and clear story when you're interviewing for a job or a role in a company you're already in, or a role in any sort of team, anything that you're doing. Why are you the best person? What is your competitive advantage? Why should they invest in you? And when you have all of this and you think through it and you think through your messaging, you're going to wind up having the outcomes that you're looking for. So I wanted to share this book with you. It's called The EQ Edge, Emotional Intelligence and Your Success. So I didn't write it, but I bought this book because I do a lot of work on emotional intelligence. And this is based on some of the early writings of emotional intelligence. So there's a lot of really good information in here. And I think if you read it, you can follow through. You can start saying, oh, wait, I get this. I know what I need to do and how I need to do it and how I can make a difference. So for your summer reading, The EQ Edge, and it's by Stephen Stein and Howard E. Book. It's a really good book. It's an easy read. I basically highlighted the whole book, so get a highlighting pen with you. And if there are no other questions, or are there any other questions, I guess I should say, or anything you want to share?
Well, thank you, Helene, so much for this wonderful presentation on emotional intelligence. We did have a few questions coming through,
let's
as
go.
well as comments. There was great participation on our members. Our members had a lot to say here. One of the questions that came through was, do you believe it would be wise for me to utilize emotional intelligence as an entry-level recent graduate student? Saying, for example, they're not quite in a leadership role, but using their emotional intelligence tactics that you presented today as an entry-level graduate.
You can never utilize emotionally intelligent behaviors in the wrong way. So always set yourself apart, use it. And one of the things that happen is you become aware of others. So you're not risking difficult conversations or people thinking you're arrogant or anything like that. What you're doing is really fostering productive interactions with people, and you're sharing your why, and you're sharing your understanding because you understand others enough to know how to communicate this way. So absolutely, you should develop it and use it. There's no reason to not use it.
That's great.
Good question. Thank you.
Ava asked, as someone who struggles with impulsive, my goodness, I cannot say this word, impulsiveness and emotional regulation due to trauma and ADHD, what are some strategies people like myself can utilize to refrain from reaching from emotion in that moment?
Well, first I'd say, make sure you understand why you're triggered. Make sure you understand the situations that you're triggered. And then try to come up with a way, as you're being triggered, to bring it back down. How do you keep yourself self-regulated? And then I would say, if you're on campus, ask for a school counselor to work with you. Work with a coach. I'm saying that because I'm a coach. Work with a coach, work with a school counselor, ask people. So something that I do when I get triggered, so I don't like when things seem chaotic. I like when things are in control. And when there's a lot happening, I get anxious. And when I get anxious, I overly control everything. And I think I am the only one who has all the answers. So I'll just jump in and I'm told I bark and I say, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I think, oh, I'm so fabulous because no one has to stress about it. I've given you all the answers you could ever want. And guess what? I am keeping people from learning about the situation and learning how to come up with answers. And I'm also keeping people from being part of the solution, because maybe my solution is not the best solution. Maybe there's other ways to do it, and I'm not looking at it from other perspectives. So I literally, like, I know when that's happening to me, I can feel it. And I stop and I take a breath. And I work really hard to let people know who I work with that these are my triggers. And if I do it, give me a sign. So some of the things they do is they go like this, or people will go, hey, is it time to breathe? So figure out what you need to do. Being able to share that with someone takes trust, and it's difficult. I'd say read the book, figure out how, ask for help. You don't have to have all the answers. You understand it, ask others for what they think could be an answer to help you. I hope that helped.
That was a very good response. Where would you suggest an undergraduate student without work experience like myself practice the art of emotional intelligence for a potential leadership role within the workplace or even within NSCS?
So if you're not on the, oh, shoot, I'm forgetting what it's called.
Leadership board.
Leadership. If you're not on leadership, see how you could get involved. As you're working on projects, utilize that time and ability to stand up and take more of a leadership role in that. When you're working with other people, practice thinking about, so I want to do it this way, but I see them and I think if I do that, they'll react this way, so I should change it. Start doing things and really being comfortable. Think of yourself as a leader. If you are a high achiever, which you apparently are because you're an NSCS, right? You are a high achieving student. You are a leader. So you're ready, you have the foundation. Build on it from there and start looking at opportunities where you can really flex your leadership muscle to do things. Maybe it's just, have you ever been in a situation where something happens and people act like the sky's falling? And we all get sucked up into that. When you're a leader, when you step back and you say, okay, let's look at the situation. What's really happening? What's another way that we can approach this? And you start speaking a way where you are setting your own vision for it and you're getting people in alignment and you de-escalate. That's a really good way to practice leadership, because every leader needs that skill and not every leader has that skill.
Definitely. Kenny asks, he kind of went back and forth. He says, I struggle with that too. That meaning emotional dysregulation per Emma's question. And I tend to shut down and experience trouble getting my thoughts together. How can I process things more clearly to communicate better?
Okay, so some people process quickly and they don't think. And other people process internally. They think first and then they process. Understanding how you do this is really important. No one way is right. It's all who we are. So if you want time to think through so that you can process it, you can say, you know what, I'd like to take a moment to really think this through and process it in a way. I don't like just, not thinking through something and sharing what I think it is. So letting people know what you're doing, not responding at all is not good. Shutting down is not good. I've been in meetings where people get triggered and instead of saying something, they say nothing and it's crickets. And then people are like, oh, what happened to so-and-so? Like they weren't even participating. And then people create stories. When you tell them, there's no story to create. And no one's going to be mad at you because you need time to think through things because you want to make the right choice. And if they are, then that's their problem, not yours. So take the time, come up with ways. Like I don't tell everyone that I need to control things, but I do. So what do I say to people? Well, it depends on the people I'm talking to. So understanding them and figure out what your story is. And again, you're not really changing the story, you're changing the how you communicate it to them. And most people will be understanding, most people will have empathy, most people will value your differences and collaborate with you. And if they don't, you need to question, are they worth my energy right now? Or should I work with someone else who will want to collaborate with me and understand? So don't shut down, but make a choice.
Wise words. How can we utilize emotional intelligence with our college experience? For example, your slide, unlock your competitive advantage. How would you use that example within a college experience?
So I would say, I went to school a very long time ago, but when I was going to school, I always made sure that I knew the professors, they knew me, they knew what I was looking to do, what goals I had. And I was an A student and NSCS wasn't around then, or I would have been a member too. But I was an A student and I let them know what my plans were and how important it was for me. And they understood that I needed to really excel. So when there was an opportunity to work on a project team or they were doing their own research, I got to work with a lot of professors helping them with their own research. I have a degree in psychology. I have an undergrad in psych and a master's in org psych. So they would understand what I was looking for and they gave me those opportunities. When I was in college, the only work that I did was with professors. And then when I got out of school, I got a job at Chase Manhattan Bank as a trainer based on what I did and what I was doing in grad school. So take every opportunity to share what's important to you, what you want to do. There's no one right way to do it, but don't let fear hold you back from having the conversations and trust people enough to say, this is who I am and what I want to do. And if you say to a professor, hey, I'm looking to grow in leadership skills. Do you have any projects you're working on or anything that I could maybe help you with? See what they say. And then ask your chapter leadership team where they need help. Maybe they want to do an event. And you can help them do the event by making sure, especially if you don't like public speaking, making sure you tell everyone about it so you can get people there and overcome that barrier.
Yeah. And being a chapter leader does help you overcome a lot of barriers that you put within yourself. And it helps you kind of jump over that hurdle, myself included. I would have never thought I would be where I am today without being on the officer board. I never would have thought I'd be talking to all of you today and things like that.
Exactly.
So I agree. I think taking part, stepping out of your comfort zone and joining the officer board, or even just attending the ScholarCast even today, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're interacting with other people. It's a great way to help. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming through. So Helene, thank you so much for joining us today and presenting this wonderful presentation. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. They're bringing, if you want to open up the chat, Helene, you can see all the thank yous and kind words that they have for you. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. As your closing remarks, Helene, do you have any?
I so enjoy spending time with all of you because you really are our future and you are going to help us within the future. So be your best self. Don't let fear get in your way and read the book. And again, I didn't write it. I don't get any money from this book. It's a really good book, but just put yourself out there, and thank you all so much. I love how you all participated. It really warms my heart. And now I'm going to tell my son that I did this and that I mentioned him. And he'll roll his eyes.
He'll roll his eyes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer and go build your emotional intelligence.
Definitely. Thank you all for joining us. We will be sending you the recording within the next 24 to 48 hours via email, as well as putting it up on Scholar Central for you to view at a later date, as well as those who were not able to attend. Helene, I would like to thank you one last time on behalf of all of our members for giving your wonderful expertise and insight into emotional intelligence. Scholars, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you at the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.